sound the same because of my allergies right now. So today we begin lecture module 12, and I'm going to go into this information in a minute. What I first wanted to present was what's required for the final projects. So I'm going to jump to, and I'll start with the Linux Lab final projects. So if you go to Linux Labs and scroll down, final projects. So they are due this semester, Wednesday, May 11th. So the final projects themselves consist of the final project submission, which will be predominantly a Linux lab. It's a Linux final project. Well, there is an opportunity for a programming final project. You must participate in the final project discussion board, and I'll cover this in just a second. And you also must participate in the ethics discussion board, and I'll cover this. So for the final projects, you'll choose one final project from the submenu. So if I were to go back up to Linux Labs here, final projects, you'll see a submenu with all the final projects. And I should have stated this at the outset. Read this page in its entirety. Don't just read to here, okay, choose one final project and go to the final project. Please read the entire page in its entirety first. So you'll be choosing one final project from the submenu, and I'll go over those in just a minute. You'll submit screenshots of your final project in the course conclusion lecture module. So all the way at the bottom where lecture module 15 should be is the course conclusion lecture module. Note in this lecture module, you'll have places to submit your screenshots, the final project's screenshots, your final project discussion board, the ethics discussion board, but also note there is a Linux operating system quiz there. It's the only Linux quiz I provide all semester, and it will cover everything you've covered. My recommendation to you is minimally, at the bottom of each Linux lab are all the commands used. Print those out, make sure you know those. Okay, moving on. The ethics discussion board I will cover in just a minute. Note, the final projects are unsupported to the extent that you've been given all of the requisite resources to complete them. If you've completed Linux Lab 1 through 12, and this is required to submit a final project, you must complete all the Linux labs, you have the necessary resources to do the final projects. In some cases, you may encounter an obstacle. Use Google. What is the error message being shown to you? Google it. You will find the answer right there. It may take several tries. You may have to go down second or third or fourth search results, but it will be there. Should you have severe difficulty, please contact me. But quite often, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to Google. And if I see the answer right there, if I see that we've covered that material, it's going to be up to you to work it out. And the reason I have to do this, I can't get you over obstacles. I can't essentially do components of your final project and then turn around and give you a grade for what is essentially my work. Okay? Again, the Linux labs have prepared you. This is an important step because following this course, I will not be available to answer your questions. And I want you to realize that you can accomplish anything. Hopefully you've reached that point by now. So I want to go through the final projects and just a real quick introduction. First is the advanced scripting. Advanced scripting is done on the Hudson Valley, the AcadNX server. So similar to your Linux Labs 1 through 9 and Linux Lab 12, you're working on the server. So you do not need a virtual machine. Windows 8, and I haven't seen enough about Windows 10. Windows 8 can present challenges with virtual machines. Quite often the best solution is to go with their Hyper-V option, and that has been shown to be working. But if there are problems with the virtual machine, here's a final project that is available that doesn't require one. It is lengthy. It requires 10 plus hours. So if you're pursuing this, and that's kind of best case, it could take 15, it could take 20. Get started immediately. The LAMP WordPress implementation. If you are in the web design program, I encourage you, even as much as I can, to do this final project. What is the LAMP? LAMP stands for the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack. This is that three-tier architecture that is the web today. And you can implement this within your virtual machine. So essentially, you become a webmaster. It's fairly straightforward. It's gotten easier over time. The instructions have gotten easier over time. And then following implementation of LAMP, you'll create a WordPress instance. WordPress, of course, is a content management system used for web authoring. Note there is a built-in extra point here, if you wish, extra credit, if you do this in the Amazon EC2 cloud. So should you wish to do this, and that is a great skill to have, to be able to walk into an organization and say, yes, I can have a website up and running for you by this afternoon on the Amazon cloud without any on-site server. It's robust, it's secure, it's a fantastic option. Kali Linux, formerly Backtrack. If you are in the System and Network Administration program, I highly, strongly encourage you to do this. Kali Linux is a security and penetration tool. And some of its features or functionality are downright frightening. It's often said that it should be illegal. You can sniff wireless traffic. You can do password attacks. It is essentially a tool for hacking. It will take you years to understand everything it can do, but still, if you're getting into system and network administration, being able to do security and penetration testing is just a valuable resource. Kali Linux for this one, for your discussion board, because the implementation is straightforward. If you have a virtual machine running right now, you could have Kali Linux running by tonight. The real component of the final project for this is trying and researching, going on YouTube, whatever resources you find, researching 3 functionalities that it allows you to do, and then trying them, and you'll post your experiences. So whether it's password cracking, Wi-Fi interception, sniffing, things of this nature, all kinds of social media tools for phishing. There's too much here. Okay, it is a dangerous environment. But if we know about its presence, if we know about its functionality, we're at least on guard to prevent attacks from it. The Agile Extreme Programming with Eclipse or Java. If you know you're going to, say, a computer science program for your school, and again, we understand the differences between computer science, information technology, management information systems, informatics. But if you know you're going straight computer science and programming is your future, I recommend the Agile Extreme Programming with Eclipse. And next week we cover programming, so I'll introduce what extreme programming is. It's a software engineering methodology. And again, today we begin systems analysis design so that the principles carry over. Lastly, if you have a recommendation, something that you are doing, I've had students do the Raspberry Pi or use Raspberry Pi or the Arduino unit to create robotics, Internet of Things applications. I'm open to that. You just need to email me and get my permission. So that is the final project. The Ethics Discussion Board. The Ethics Discussion Board, again, the directions are here. By the way, the final project discussion board instructions are there. So the Ethics and Professional Conduct Discussion Board. Similar to the final project, please read this page in its entirety first, so you get the big picture, so you know what is required. So what is required for this? Essentially, what you're going to do is find a topic or an article where you can have an ethical discussion. What I recommend is the cs100.com tag field. If you look at the right here, okay, this is a tag cloud, so to speak, and ethics might even be here in the, yep, so it's right there. And of course you could, security, if you searched on security, same thing, or I could just search, okay, I could use the site search and find an article. If you have something in mind, and there are many things taking place today, of course, the FBI versus Apple, Apple's resistance to providing the FBI with the, essentially the ciphers to break their encryption. So we need to understand the nature of information and information ethics elements, and we're going to go through those in just a minute. And I've presented those before, but we'll look at them again. You need to choose an ethical theory basis, and again, this is below. Choose an applicable tenet from the ACM Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, and then discuss the topic with all of these things in mind. And lastly, you are required to provide an APA citation for your chosen topic or article. The post should be about 350 to 500 words. Essentially you're looking at one page of paper, maybe 3 paragraphs. Okay, not super short paragraphs, but 3 paragraphs. So you introduce the topic, state your basis, state how the ACM Code of Ethics applies, and discuss it. So let's look at the elements here. Again, we're looking at information systems. We're looking at information. And ethics comes to the forefront largely because of the difference between information and physical items. So what are these differences? Well, physical items wear out. They're replicated at the expense of the manufacturer. Yes, I could, or say I could, reverse engineer an automobile, right? The cost for me to make an automobile would be prohibitive, to set up and get all the parts, set up manufacturing, things of this nature. Very different for information. I can replicate information like that, copy, paste, done. Physical items exist at a tangible location. Well, think about, again, say a music file, an MP3. Where does it exist? Well, it's on my hard drive. Oh, I threw it up in a cloud. I shared it with a friend. When sold with a physical item, the seller no longer owns the thing. I sell my car. I no longer own it. But if I were to, say, have a digital image of a movie or something and I sold it, well, I still have that movie on my hard drive. So again, a lot of the ethical topics that come up stem from the difference between physical items and information. And again, we have to acknowledge that we are just in our infancy in understanding information systems and computing, right? When you look at other disciplines, biology, chemistry, mathematics, that have been around for hundreds, even thousands of years. Computer science, 40, 50. So again, we're just very immature in our understanding of this. So information, lastly, it's costly to produce. If we think about a movie, if we think about a song, okay, a professionally recorded song, the cost is that initial cost. But once you have it in digital format, of course, I can reproduce it almost without limit. So pricing, now we're moving into economics, is set to recover the sunk cost of its initial production. Okay, very unlike cars. If you were to buy a car, okay, yes, you're still paying for the design of the car, things like that. But really, we're paying for the manufacturing, the labor, the parts on a continuing basis. Okay, I'm not going to read all of these, but information ethics elements. We have to be concerned with accuracy, privacy, property, and accessibility. And accuracy is very important, because we could have an ethical discussion. Say there is a software designer that creates, say, tax software. What if there are inherent errors in it, and it causes the users of the software to have, maybe they have to undergo an audit? Who's responsible? So we really have to look at accuracy in information when it comes to information ethics as well. Ethics theories. Okay. As I stated, ethics are contextual. Why? Well, and let me note this. In your ethics discussion board, I am not grading whatsoever on your opinion. Your opinion could be as far away from mine as can be, but that is not for me to judge. The only thing I'm judging or grading, assessing, is how you apply these elements, the theories, and the ACM Code of Ethics to your discussion. Is there a linkage? So let's look at the three theories: stockholder, stakeholder, and social contract. Stockholder theory, in its essence, means that, well, money is king. The only thing I am basing my decisions on, my ethical decisions, is making money for my stockholders, those people who have money invested in the company. That's it. I don't care about anything else. My sole purpose is to make money for my stockholders. And you can see how if I ascribe to this perspective, it can drive some decisions that may not be palatable or well liked throughout the community. Stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory extends stockholder theory to also include the stakeholders, the people who have vested interest in the company. So stockholder theory would state, I only care about making money for my stockholders. Stakeholder theory would be expanded for me to show concern, say, for my employees. And you can have an ethical discussion here if you look at, say, social computing, Facebook. What actually constitutes a stakeholder? Okay, is it, Facebook stockholders, Facebook employees? But if you're using Facebook, are you not also a stakeholder? So when you look at their privacy statements, the way that they're using their information, selling information, is it ethical? Is Facebook ethical from a stakeholder theory, depending on how you define stakeholder? So again, there's no black and white here. Everything is analog. Lastly, social contract theory. Social contract theory means that an organization would produce more goods, or produce more good, than the resources it consumes. It has an obligation to serve society. And you look at companies, going green. I don't know if you've ever noticed, for my web site here, CISS100.com, I use Fat Cow. I pay a little extra, but all of their servers are entirely 100% wind powered. They're all located in the middle of this country. So at least CISS100.com doesn't have a carbon footprint. So that's just my perspective or effort to abide by social contract theory. Now, note, we continually state, you've heard me state this over and over, right? The business IT society triangle. And in a minute, I'm going to get back to lecture module 12, where we determine that business must drive. If you're going to make a decision, what's the business purpose? I'm a geek. I love technology. I would love to just implement technology for technology's sake. We can't do that in business. I can't just see a new technology say, hey, how can we use this? No. What is the business? What's the driving factor? Do I have a use for this? And is it cost effective? Is it efficient? Will it increase my efficiency? So ethical decisions can drive business in untoward ways. And I give an example. Right now we have monitoring and surveillance capabilities as we've never had in history, right? GPS, things of this nature. We can put a GPS in an employee's car. We can issue them a phone that has GPS. We could track where they go. We could track if they stop at Dunkin' Donuts too frequently. Okay. But this can have untoward effects. Because in this type of environment, how are the employees going to feel if they're constantly being watched? One, their morale is going to suffer. Typically, when morale suffers, productivity suffers. This could actually require, to remain efficient and effective, changes in human resources. I may have to do psychological profiling and management, things of this nature. So my human resources costs may go up. Recall, I'm basing these decisions on a business focus. So I'm doing this, I'm tracking my employees, but their morale is down. So now I have to spend more money on human resources. So does it make sense? These are all of these things. And again, I'm not, when I look at the discussion board posts, I'm not making any judgment whatsoever. You can have any perspective that you like. So, lastly, the ACM Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. Contribute to society and human well-being. Well, that kind of goes along with social contract theory right there. Now, again, you don't have to abide by this. You don't have to agree with it. Avoid harm to others. And here's where we can get real nebulous with our ethics discussions. Avoid harm to others. Negative consequences. Microsoft, right? Microsoft puts out an operating system. It's always going to have bugs. If you're hacked, you may lose information. Okay. Google launches things. Typically, they launch things and they're continually in beta. They're never even really full production systems. They expect that it will have bugs. So there could be negative consequences. So you can see how the discussion, an ethical discussion in this area can just be very wide. Well-intended actions, including those that accomplish assigned duties, may lead to harm unexpectedly. Okay? In such an event, the responsible person or persons are obligated to undo or mitigate negative consequences. So if you get hacked because of your Microsoft Windows has a security hole, has Microsoft ever come forward and paid you for your loss of information? So there are many things here that are open to interpretation. So intellectual property rights, things like this, digital rights management. Many things here. Respect the privacy of others. Apple was found to be monitoring people's locations in California using the GPS on their phones, just kind of keeping it in a database. So we can go on from the the top end tech companies to the lesser companies. Some interesting tenets here, and again, you're required to read it all. Acquire and maintain professional competence. In this discipline, your studies are never over, ever. And if you want to be done, maybe you should, think about math or some other discipline. In information technology, computer science, this field is just evolving, continually evolving at an astounding rate. Now, there's some other things here. Give comprehensive and thorough evaluations of computer systems and their impacts. Because in a minute, we're going to look at information systems analysis design. It's our obligation to review, to assess all possibilities. And quite often, this is not done. So I won't read through this anymore. Some really interesting things here. Improve public understanding of computing. It's our professional responsibility to inform the public. And you can think about this in light of what's going on with security. And obviously, we may not be doing the best job. But then again, they do what they do. They post their personal lives, every intricate detail on Facebook. So, there's not much we can do at some point. Okay, so you're responsible for reading this. And then down here, the APA citation. So here, I actually recommend OWL. This has probably the best straightforward way to write an APA citation. Microsoft Word, too, will format an APA citation for you. So my recommendation is you compose in Microsoft Word and then copy it, of course, into the ethics discussion board. And again, you have 4 weeks to do this. So in a nutshell, and I gave some examples here. I won't go through them. This is a really good one. And I presented this earlier in the year with Sony Music and their rootkit. But in a nutshell, you're choosing an article. You are going to apply one of the ethical theories. Okay, so this is the article I chose. I'm going to discuss it based on social contract theory. I'm going to discuss it based on, stakeholder theory. So that gives a platform. So it's going to define what you're discussing. Upon review of the ACM Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, whatever, section 1.2, and I'm just making that up, do your best. Obviously, this was not done. Okay, why? Maybe they didn't evaluate properly all possible options. And then provide an APA citation. So that's it. Choose an article, discuss it based on a ethical theory, also citing the ACM Code of Ethics. We're looking at 350 to 500 words, essentially, 3 paragraphs. You can do 2 paragraphs. 500 words is about a sheet of paper. If you were to type it out, actually it's a little over. But again, 350 is that low end. So that's the requirement.